episode 2. Today I am sitting on the floor in my office. Do not want to sit at my desk. I posted something on LinkedIn. And just to tell you a little bit about my background, I remember in architecture school, undergrad, I had a professor, and we were in class, or studio, that's what they call the courses that you take that are they're all design based, but where you're designing a project. And I was having trouble with drawing an axonometric and drafting it. That is kind of like a 3D model a little bit. It was an axonometric wall section, I believe. I couldn't get it. And I think this studio, we were designing a school, an elementary school. And so I mentioned this before. I went to UVA, and in undergrad, my first year, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And so, and I'm realizing that I need to tell a little bit of my own story. I had applied for architecture school while at UVA, not before. And the first year, so I wasn't in the architecture school. I was taking architecture courses. But you need to be in the architecture school to major in it. So this was a summer course, I believe. And I don't know if it was before or after. The first year I applied, I was not accepted. And a professor had said to me, this is a different one, that people that transfer into the program are usually the better students because they had to kind of fight for it. I don't know what that means. But I guess my story, there's two sides to every coin. That at the time it felt like rejection, but looking back, that I've really had to, at least with architecture, there was plenty of opportunities for me to say, I don't want to do this. And it was just something that just kept gnawing at me, that I couldn't give up on. So, what was I talking about? I'm in studio, and this professor comes up to me. He says, "Oh, the artist." I'm thinking, aren't we all artists? Isn't that what architecture, like the root of architecture, is? And I don't know if it is. I don't know. Part of this is me trying to figure out what an architect is. I mean, I am a licensed architect. I started out in construction for 6 years, and then I worked at a firm for 2 or 3 years, and now I am licensed. So it's less about who am I, with my job title. It's just more about, like, what does an architect do? And I was thinking about this drawing or diagram I did during the ARE exams about glass, what glass does. And it can do different things. I don't know it all off the top of my head. Absorb, or maybe it was sound. No, it was sound. Absorb, reflect, transmit is one of them. I think that's what an architect does. At least for me, that I'm learning I kind of live in a world of sound where I am able to listen, by people talking, and not just auditory, but as an artist or an architect, able to take in what's going on with a person and transmit it into something else in an abstracted way. And that's what I love about architecture, is that it's kind of a symbol. One of the things that it does is that it's a reflection of the time. And as somebody, for my thesis, I studied neuroscience. I know little about it, and a neuroscientist will tell you that, they know little about how the brain works, but there is a book, and I'm going to start citing stuff, called The Architect's Brain by Harry Francis Mulgrave, that I read, and it talks about, or maybe it was his other book, Architecture and Embodiment, that these spaces, materials, when we talk about the chi, right? The chi of a space, there is activity that goes on in the brain that can explain some of that. I'll give you an example. He talks about reliefs, the art reliefs, where you are using some kind of chisel and chiseling out a relief of something. That there's things called mirror neurons in the brain where they're activated when they, for example, if I were to walk up to the relief, the mirror neurons in my brain would then activate in a way that would almost make it feel embodied. Like I could somehow feel or understand or be connected with the person that's making that piece. That's high level. I will talk more about that later, but there's just been a lot of studies about it. And after that thesis, I learned so much about design. I learned so much about how architecture and art is really, it's a science. It's not that art and science, here's my belief. I don't believe that art and science are two different things. I think it's the same thing. But I also think that it's the same thing in that it's science is also an art, that it's a mystery, that there are I learned how to, again, do scientific testing, where I came up with a hypothesis and I tested it and I produced. And that's a little bit what the architectural process is like. But anyways, after that thesis, I kind of disconnected from myself a little bit, I would say. It really took away the mysticism of creativity for me, in terms of, I was starting to get to this point where I was like, well, everything can be explained. What am I, like, just in the Matrix or something? That's sort of how I started to feel, and it really led me to this place of just gray. That's how I can describe it. Just everything felt gray. And the things that I believed, kind of like spiritually, as a child, believing in magic, like that type of energy and excitement, it just felt like it was turned off a little bit. But I've been trying to think about a way, let's be frank, to make money. That I'm a newly licensed architect and I'm re-entering the field, and I'm trying to align myself with that mystery, and what I've noticed is in the field is kind of similar to where I was, where I was feeling gray, where the inspiration or the imagination seemed to be gone. So if you're not an architect, or if you are, I posted something on LinkedIn, I guess, as an experiment, at first I was just trying to put work out there, and let me put some of my drawings up here, and see what people respond to. And I had said in my last podcast that I'd started doing this in conversations as well, and this cemetery thing just keeps coming back. Not cemeteries. That is the place of it, but it's the story of the unknown, of the past, of identity. The post was of a some diagrams that I had done, plan section and elevation, of what's called a niche. I don't know if I created that in my head. I didn't find any, that was a result of numerous studies of biophilic design, and researching others' work and doing studies of my own. So the term niche might not be new, but to me, in my head, I hadn't been exposed to that word before. So I posting something every day, and this was one I was just like, let me just throw this up here, right? There was no real thought to it. And this thing went crazy. I mean, I was... I feel like I need to start this over. I was, for my thesis, part of what I did, and I think might be part of the problem, and it's why I don't want it to be put in the wrong hands, is I would do data analysis. I would propose 2 different designs to people that aren't architects and ask them which one they preferred, the shape of the niche, square or arched, things like that, and kind of get a response to do my own study to see, what is the preference? What is the preference based on the situation a person might be in? So I have this kind of understanding of a little bit of human behavior, I guess, and as it relates to spaces. And so I noticed with the niche that nobody was commenting. And then I noticed that a lot of people were looking at it, because I pay for the the data, the analytics is what they call it. I think I don't know where the number is now. It's kind of trickled down at this point, but I got around 50, almost 60,000 people looking at it. I got around 46 or something. And And you know, I'm not doing thesis and I'm not getting paid for this. I'm not getting paid for any of this. I'm not sponsored by anybody. But I was, you know, quick level analysis. I'm thinking, okay, people are looking at this twice. And then I'm thinking, you know, maybe I got like 145 likes. So I'm thinking, okay, I really don't have a clear indication of why people like this. What is it about it that they like? And so I then realized, wait a minute. I just posted some of my work that took a lot of time that's being circulated now, and I think I got an additional like 50 profile views or something like that. That it's not really being connected to me, if that makes sense. That it's my work, and that it's work that took time. And so I'm thinking, okay, I just basically cannibalized myself with that, right? But that's not... That's not what occurred in the end. You know, over time I realized kind of what was going on. So myself, I started looking at these drawings and realized that, you know, the niche is for a single person. And maybe this is just a theory, but maybe people like it because, or people are looking at it because maybe they feel alone. They identify with it. And then I started looking at it and I was like, dear God, it looks like a headstone. It looks like a headstone. It's just an arch with a person in it. I mean, it's like a cased opening, if you will. Cased arch opening with a person in it. And that is what drawing does for me. It's less about the work itself. It's more about going from gray to feeling like there's color. And I can talk about that experience later because I'm getting real off track. So drawing, the process of drawing, I have not done a lot of research about it, limited, but what I do know is that it activates something in the brain, in different areas of the brain. It's an unknown kind of phenomenon, to my understanding. Limited research, could be wrong, but that's certainly how it feels, that it unlocks something. It unlocks something for me. It connects me to myself, and that's what I think that people are feeling. They are not, possibly, maybe they're feeling disconnected from others, but I think there's a disconnection of the self, of that creative force that I'm talking about. That when I draw, you know, I for so long I was wanting to paint, and I couldn't because I wanted to see it first. And I eventually one day realized that I just felt like nobody was listening to me, like nobody could hear me. And so I was like, I've got to draw something. I mean, I've been taking time off work to take those exams, and I had a couple of jobs that fell through, and I hadn't been drawing, and so I texted my husband and I said, I need a pen and paper. I might have talked about this already. I did record one session that I didn't upload. And it was amazing. It was amazing. At first I tried to draw the cat, and she was, it was just, I hadn't done it in a while, so it was like, it looked like hell. I mean, the perspective was all messed up. And then I tried drawing the dog, and then I was flipping page after page, and I just had this sketchbook that I've had for a million years, and I'm using like page 20 on it, and I think I'm using like a bag of random pencils and markers. I didn't care. I felt like I needed to get something out, and it was amazing. I think I started drawing things in the room. I started drawing the knob on a drawer, and I drew it, and then I kind of saw a face, and I started drawing the face, things like that. And then it was like, I realized as I was doing it, it was the sound. It was the sound of the scratching on the paper that I couldn't hear myself. It was a disconnect for me. I was disconnected from myself. And so that's what drawing does for me, that when I draw something, I just try to get it out. And I think that's a little bit of what the embodiment process is for self-reflection. Is I can look at something, and be it, scribbles or what, I try not to, I don't even worry about what it looks like, that I try to just get the scribbles out, and then I analyze it. The line weight, the pressure, the composition, there's something in me that has to get out. I can't think it, I can't say it, but if I put it on paper, it's almost like stream of conscious journaling, just writing down something without analyzing it first. It really has been quite liberating for me, and it's really helped connect me to myself. Do I do it all the time? No, because I'm struggling with it too, but I have noticed that. So, so that is the issue, not issue, but what I'm hearing in between the lines is that people are feeling disconnected from themselves and with conversations that I'm having, just because I'm not I'm an artist. I'm not really somebody that is great with talking, I guess. Why am I doing a podcast? Don't know. But is that people maybe, don't realize it. They don't realize it. And the only way I really know is because when I was taking those exams, I was focused on one goal, and I was disconnected from technology, for the most part. I am not against AI. If you look at my executive summary, I love technology. I would call myself a technologist. I wrote that summary without even trying to paint a picture. I just wrote it, and that's what came out. I was like, dear God, I should have been in IT or something. I guess what I'm trying to emphasize is that as somebody who has read scientific journals and from people that are in the medical field and people that are actual scientists, is that there is a lot of unknown, and I'm more worried about artificial imagination. That is something that can't be controlled or replicated. That technology is a tool, right? We just have to learn how to use it. So that the niche drawing was done in a software called Morpholio Trace, which I use a lot. It's on my iPad, and it's great. It allows me to turn layers on and off, and that was part of the discovery process of the correlation to the headstone and the cemetery. So I'm learning too. I'm learning too about what I'm supposed to be doing. But I wanted to record this tonight because it came back to Gladys. It came back to Gladys again, and I kind of I gave up on her a little bit because I realized how many people looked at my post, and I realized how many photo requests there are for these tombstones, and I'm thinking, I can't reach out to every single person. I can't do that. How do I form a friendship, and there's just not enough time. There's not enough time. That's the thing I keep coming back to, time. That would take a lifetime or more. And so time's a funny thing. Back to science. I had been exposed to something. I don't know if it was on my phone or whatever. Looking at Stephen Hawking's book, and maybe it was something about Albert Einstein, where they talk about space and time. And that's what architects and myself feel like, and maybe everybody, that we're running out of time. What I do know is what the scientists, I guess to this date, understand, is that time is it's relative, and it's space and time are the same thing. And that's the beautiful thing about architecture, is that you can walk into a space, and it's happened to me, of an older space, and feel like you're back in time. So you kind of see how, I guess, a lot of these areas of study, art, architecture, and then kind of, I would say amateur hobbies of like science and history, and there's other things that they are kind of explaining, or they're different. They help explain the other. I don't know how it all works. I don't. Last night, I feel like I'm running out of time. And or I felt like I was. And just trying to find my place in the world, and how can I help. And my mom had this idea of drawing faces again. That when I was a child, that's what I did. I would draw faces. And she's like, you have a gift for that, is faces. So I can be linear here and not overly confuse people. My husband and I, we had a disagreement. Or basically Kelly had a freak out, let's put it that way, where I just felt this feeling of like, I've got to get out of this house. Kind of like I can't sit still. So I took my sketchbook and drove to Mount Trashmore in Virginia Beach. Yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. It is a basically mountain of trash that I don't know exactly the science behind it, but it's a way of, trash doesn't just disappear. It was I guess an urban project that I can't speak to how it functions, but I got there and there was a guy skateboarding. On the way, there was a truck that had a dove with an olive branch in its mouth, and I had read that in the morning. I've been reading Genesis and Noah's Ark and the dove and the olive branch, and that's my favorite painting is Picasso's dove piece. I saw that on the way. I got to the Mount Trashmore, and there was a skateboarder that skated by, and I was thinking, man, there's a skate park at Mount Trashmore. I'm going there. And I had done a studio project on a skate park. And I love that. That's the culture of Virginia Beach I grew up with, was kids were skating, So I went over there with my sketchbook like a mad woman. And I went past the little, quarter pipes, and there's like families there with their kids, and I'm not trying to be like a creep drawing, their children skateboarding. So I'm trying to find an area. And so I knew, because I had been to that park before and studied the skate park, there's a huge half pipe there. I mean, this thing is awesome. But there was some couple there it almost looked like maybe they had lost their keys or phone underneath it. So they're kind of like on the ground looking for it. I'm trying to find a space by myself. And I look over to the mountain, right? It's dark. There's the moon. And there's I guess it was a blue crane. And I was like, okay, this is kind of where I need to be. So, I was trying to find a bench, but I was like, yes, whatever. Let me stand up. So I stood up and I started drawing a face. All right, half an hour. I started drawing a face of somebody that I know. Somebody very important to me. And I was listening to a song that came on. And it was just very... it's like an electronic song. It was very... just kind of really centered my chi, I guess. I felt plugged in, and I just started drawing. And I just, in art class, what they teach you, maybe not in architecture school, but it's how you hold the pencil. In school, when we're writing, we hold towards where the graphite is, and it's more controlled. But as an artist, you learn, you kind of hold the back end of the pencil, and you kind of almost loosen your grip a little bit, maybe like a drummer does, where it's more in the wrist, it's less in the fingers, and it allows more of a flow. So these are thoughts I'm having while I'm doing it. That wait a minute, I'm pushing too hard, and then it was like, so it's this dance of me trying to take control and me letting go. And I'm just I'm feeling it. I'm listening to the music, and this thing is coming out before me, and I'm almost thinking to myself, let me see what happens. I'm just watching this process. Let me see what happens. And then there were moments where I was like, wait, I'm trained. I'm trained in how to draw faces. I know that, the lips, the outside of the lips, if you draw a line up, it goes to the center of the pupil, that I was taught by my aunt, who's an art teacher, the proportions of the face. So it was this dance of what I know and of something else. And eventually I wasn't done, but they were, the ladies pulling by with the cart, and I'm thinking, okay, I don't want to get locked in or arrested, so I left. And there was this parking lot that I knew of that, never has anybody in it, so I went there and I finished it. Anyways, I realized when I was looking at the drawing that when it was done, which I finished at home, it was almost like a stereogram. And I don't know if you remember those. They were popular when I was a kid. I did a science project on it. I remember that. It's almost like a image that you would kind of pull. It looked like nothing, and then you would pull it back, and an image would pop out in 3D. And so I was taking pictures of it, thinking about posting it, and then I realized the light when I would step in front of it, it would look like me, and when I went to the left, it kind of looked like the other person. And then I realized it looked like David and myself. David's my husband. So maybe that's just what I see, but it was changing. That makes sense. It was changing. My perception of it was changing. And I think that's what art does, is Leonardo's a master of it. The smile, Mona Lisa's smile, that it looks like it's moving or watching you. It's a connection to it. It's telling you something about you by looking at it. It's a piece of me. It's a puzzle. We all love puzzles. Whatever. So today I'm thinking, okay, I still got the same issue. I need to somehow save the world, right? Get everybody to start drawing. But I also need to worry about myself here, I've got we're all kind of in the same spot as architects and artists, especially, where, we're trying to make a living doing this. How do I make a living doing art and architecture without advertising? How do I do it without... what do I believe? Is advertising bad? I don't know. But how is it real? How is it real? My husband is a therapist, mental health therapist, and we were talking at dinner, and he's busy. He's really busy. And I don't know. All of this stuff came in my head where I'm like, forensic artist. Maybe that's what I should, not what I should be doing, but that's an example of art and science, that together it can make a face. Together it can make a face. That's what buildings do. Look up Anne Sussman, Architecture and Cognition. She has a book where it's all about the face, and that's what marketing, that we lock onto faces. We're a social species in marketing. They know that, and that's part of her work is utilizing a marketing tool called 3M VAS, where in the cereal aisle, they know that humans lock onto faces, so I guess it's advertising, right? It's advertising in maybe selling with the cereal, but with architecture, it's more about getting your attention. Not getting your attention, but what do people look at? What do they identify with? I'd also recommend her lecture on post-World War II PTSD and modern architecture. She's a brilliant theorist, and science is shining a big bright light on art and architecture in a way that is pretty incredible, but also can be scary in this time. So with Gladys, I'd given up on her, kind of, where I'm just like, I don't know where she is. I don't have time to build a family tree on Ancestry and try to figure out where she is. Like, I need money. That's what I've been saying to myself. It's this pressure of time. I need to. I've got pressure. I got pressure. How do I do it in a way without folding on my beliefs? What I stand for as an artist and an architect, why I'm doing this, why I got into it in the first place. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to continue to look for her. And now it's the step of, I can't map every cemetery in the world, but what I can do is focus on me withdrawing, and what I can do is focus on Gladys. And what that means is I have not found a picture of her yet. I do not know what she looks like. I have discovered pictures of one of her brothers, the brother in the military that passed away. I can spend more time building a tree and seeing what I can discover. Not just looking for pictures, but this is where the artist and the architect comes in. Art a lot of times is about just having a blank canvas and going for it. That's what I've been doing, is just not even thinking about it. But, architecture is an example of an art that is you've got to, the first phase, it's called schematic. You are basically looking at different variables, the climate, the history of the neighborhood, the traffic flows. I mean, there are numerous things that out of that comes a design. It's not, it's called vernacular architecture. It's a, whatever is there is something that is specific to that location, to that space, that if you take that and you put it somewhere else, or has a different client or different history, that it's the opposite. It's cookie cutter. Now you're getting cookie cutter, right? I built production homes, so I understand the value of production and supply and demand. And I don't have all the answers. What I'm saying is that the result of overdoing that sometimes, and this goes back to Anne's lecture, about approaching architecture a little bit as a clean slate, is basically a response to not wanting to look at something. So I'm going to spend the time to look at Gladys. I think what maybe scares me, this is what scares me, and what I think is, I've discovered is scaring other people about the niche post. It's not that people are afraid to die. Maybe they are. I'll tell you my truth. I'm not afraid of death. It's a fear of living, of how do I do this? How do I give to others? How do I enjoy myself? How do I contribute? And feel that connection to myself? That's why I love Maurice Sendak. He talks about the mystery and the strangeness of childhood. He's not afraid to say he doesn't know. He doesn't know, and that's the beauty of it. And that's where the discovery is. That's where the discovery is. This is a very stream of consciousness episode. I appreciate you staying with me. I just am trying to, that's kind of where things are overlapping is the unknown. And that is what, death is it, there's a lot of uncertainty about what happens. So I'm finding that some people that I go on the cemetery walks with, maybe people that are older, it's this feeling of significance, that as maybe somebody retires or something, that they're not contributing anymore, and maybe they don't feel as significant. That is not the case. I know that because I used to I was an activities assistant at an Alzheimer's clinic. Not saying that everybody has Alzheimer's, and I don't know a lot about Alzheimer's and how it works, but that when there are certain things about Alzheimer's, for example, you may not remember your family, but you might be able to play an instrument as well as you did when you were 20. That there's something that's in the unknown to be discovered. With Gladys, I am going to do some more research on her and talk about it a little bit more. Again, I'm going to be vague because I don't know how much of what I'm doing is appropriate. It's just like Maurice Sendak says, some of my proudest work is deemed inappropriate. I'm going to draw her face. Now, if I find a picture of her, we'll see what happens then. I haven't found one yet. So I need to learn more about her because I believe that I'm avoiding it because I'm starting to feel a little bit insignificant. I'm starting to go back into the place of wanting to not go into the unknown and into the scary. And she reminds me of myself. And, she's been forgotten. At least that's how I see it, is that there was a photo request. It was by a genealogist. I don't know why they requested it. It wasn't by maybe their family member, but they haven't responded. So in my world, it's up to me. It's up to me to tell her story. How significant do I think she is? That's my choice. To take the time to go the shortest distance, because that's what space-time is. It's a space. How can I send my message in the shortest amount of space? I'm going to tell her story, and I'm going to do it with a painting or sketching, and I'm going to do it as part of this series, and I will record myself doing it. And then you can all call my husband and lock me up in a mental facility if you deem appropriate. But that is what I plan to do. And I know I sound a little bit wacky, and I'm worried. Not so much about I'm worried about myself, of course, but I'm, to be an artist, to be an architect, you have to have love. That's where it's coming from. It's coming from a loving place of the person that you're doing it for, the client or the user, whatever, that we get into this field for that, and it's not about the money and the circumstances of our profession. I guess I'm speaking to architects now, I think have made it more, at least in this chapter, about supply and demand. And the architecture cycles, it cycles. But it's going back to the power in our hand. It's a storytelling power of heart and of love. And I think it's been an awesome experience up to this point, and I look forward to getting to know her better and telling her story. Hopefully I'll have more information about her next time. But I did want to put a little chapter in there about myself, my areas of study, a little bit what's going on with me, to give the listener, maybe something to relate to, because as somebody who has studied technology, science, and has a little bit of an understanding of how that affects perception and connection, that there's a need for a story. There's a need for a story. So, and I think it's for the architect. So this is your artist speaking, your artist architect, that if you can't draw right now, if you're too busy right now, that's okay. I'm going to draw for us and see what happens. We'll see what happens. All right? It's all going to be good. I'm going to go try to be normal around my husband now. Take care, guys.